do a female Arab immigrant end up establishing a professional career away from our home world into the new world? Welcome back to another episode of Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. I'm your host, STJ. Today, I would like to share with you my career journey story in case some of you are thinking about leaving your home world, going into a new world, seeking higher education, and hoping to establish your dream professional career. Now, we need to keep in mind that the whole process can be very scary, it can be very challenging, and it can be some days very hard, to the point some of us will actually give up on our dreams. But I am here to tell you, since I am now on the other side of the journey and the other side of the process, that it is worth sticking to it. Trust me. And I hope after you hear my story, some of you, whether you are planning to embark on this journey or you are in the midst of it, that you will be very rewarded on the other side. And since this space on the Mindset Mastery Moments is all about telling our story, here is mine. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia as a Jordanian, and I wanted to go to dental school. Back in the day, dental schools and all professional schools in Saudi Arabia was only limited to Saudi nationals. What that means is that if you don't have a Saudi citizenship, and if you're not a Saudi, you are not allowed to be admitted into any professional schools, regardless of whether the country needs your profession, whether you excel in school, whether you have proved yourself that you are worthy of the admission. They were only focusing on encouraging and enabling and empowering Saudis to get into professional school first. Sometimes they will have a reserved spots in the class for non-Saudis if you have the right connection, if somebody can come in and vouch for you that you are planning to stay in the country and contribute to the enhancement and the elevation of that field in Saudi Arabia. And my father, may he rest in peace, he tried very, very hard to secure, he tried for 5 years to secure the Saudi nationalities for us in order, because we were born there, all 5 of us were born there, in order for us to be able to be admitted into those professional schools. But unfortunately, he was not successful. And I got to the point that I had to deal with the reality that my options are either to go back to Jordan, which, as I mentioned before, I never lived in Jordan. I related more to the Saudi Arabian lifestyle and customs and the code of conduct than I ever been with the Jordanian lifestyle. In matter of fact, I identified and I related to the American lifestyle more than I related to the Jordanian lifestyle because I never lived there. So I sat down with my father, Allah yarhamu yahsin ilayh, and I said, Dad, what am I supposed to do? I worked really, really hard all the way through high school, and I was ranked number 4 in my class. So every year, basically, they review your GPA and they will place you as top of the class. Then they will compare your GPA to the rest of the GPAs that are coming out of private schools, especially, and public schools, and they will rank you. So my GPA was number 4, the highest in the whole west coast of Saudi Arabia, repeatedly through high school. So I said, I don't think I can live in Jordan. And my dad was a feminist. He was all for women education and women empowerment. And he said, you can go wherever you want. I don't really care. You tell me where you want to go. Yes, going back to Jordan as a Jordanian, you will get free education. You might want to entertain that idea and get your undergrad degree from Jordan, then look into going to graduate school, whether Europe or United States. So I took his advice and I thought about it for a while. And I said, you know what, Dad, I don't want you to take offense if I did not end up going to Jordan. I am planning to apply to undergrad in the United States. And he said, fine. So after I graduated from high school, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, I spent about a year and a half, so 3 semesters, 2 semesters in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, just to try it out. Because my mom was nagging me and asking me to give Saudi Arabia a chance, where my dad told me that don't waste your time. Even if you're ending up graduating from a Saudi undergrad, trust me, they're not gonna grant you a position or a spot in their professional school. So my dad, from a financial point of view, he said, it's just not worth it. I know you're gonna go for free, but it's just not worth it because it might complicate your path later trying to go to graduate school for higher education. My mom wanted me to give it a chance. My mom is a lot more tribal. She identified with the Saudi Arabia lifestyle. And she thought that, why not? You were born and raised here. You've been living here for 17, 18 years. Give it a chance. So I did 2 semesters in Riyadh. And I am not going to share my experience on this episode because I would need a full episode to really walk you through that experience and what I have seen back in the day and what I have experienced. So after the 2 semesters, I sat down with my parents. I said, I can't take this anymore. Riyadh was a lot more conservative than Jeddah, which is the West Coast. The Riyadh is the center of Saudi Arabia, which is basically the headquarter of the Wahhabism beliefs in Saudi, and following the Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, who launched that movement. And it was too much of an effort for me to adapt. Even within the same country, it was so different. It was day and night between Jeddah and the center, which is Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. So my dad said, all right, why don't you start applying? You give it a shot, and it's time for you to move on and venture into the United States education market. My mom was on the fence. I think deep inside, my mom could not stand the whole idea of her firstborn daughter. I'm not firstborn, I'm number 2, to leave her and not to stay into a conservative society and conservative culture. My dad didn't care. So I said, okay, I'll meet you halfway, and I'm going to give Jeddah a try. And I spent a semester in Jeddah. I liked it. I actually got reunited with some of my high school classmates there, and I had a great time. And I just said, I'm wasting my time here. I need to take my basic science, and I want to start prepping for dental school. I was very focused. I was very determined. And I just wanted to start planning because I am very task oriented and strategic. And I wanted to plan. It was very exciting for me too, to just go away to the United States and just test myself, put myself through that experience and see if I can make it and what can I make out of that experience. So for me, it was a challenge that it was very attractive and I was willing to take. So during that first semester in Jeddah, I applied to American universities and I got accepted, like I said, at UCLA, Georgetown, and Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, Ohio. And I loved the Georgetown campus. I did not go visit the Georgetown campus, but the booklet that came with my acceptance, I'm like, oh my God, this is beautiful. I researched the weather. It's very close to Saudi Arabia, so I don't have to adjust that much. And then my mom, she was so nervous to send me away across the world into the new world by myself. My brother, who was 11 months older than me, he was at the University of Dhahran, which is on the east coast of Saudi Arabia. And he was happy. He was he was settled there. He was satisfied. It was good enough for him. He was in engineering school. And my mom pitched the idea that, well, how about your brother? Your brother can go with you too. Did you ask him? Maybe he wants to change. Maybe he is interested in going to the United States. And because the admission deadline has passed, and I said, I'm not staying another semester in Jeddah, in Saudi Arabia. I just gotta go. I gotta make it on my own, and I'm ready. I have seen the other side of it. Now I know for sure from all the observational data that I had from the 18 months that I spent in Saudi university systems that it's not for me. So now I have proof. There was no doubt in my mind that what if? I've experienced it, I lived it, it's not for me, I'm ready to go. So miraculously, she convinced my brother to apply. Of course, because he applied late. Now, granted, my brother was number one in, I think, the whole west coast of Saudi Arabia. He was brilliant. I think he has photographic memory, and he will flip literally the pages for 3 hours before the final exam, and he will ace everything. But also back in the day, according to Saudi policy, you are not allowed, when the announcement comes out after the final examination every single year, the newspapers are not allowed to publish the list of the top 5 in that year without having number 1 being a Saudi citizen. So my brother was robbed from that opportunity and that chance because they always put the Saudi name above his name, but we knew what his GPA is like, and he was always supposed to be number 1. Anyhow, regardless, he applied late, and the only school that will take him was Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. My mom was thrilled. My mom was so excited, and she came to me and said, this is meant to be. I told you that if your brother apply, he will get accepted, and you're going to go to Case Western. And I was livid because I want to go to Georgetown. I had no interest to go to UCLA. I did not like California. I didn't want to spend 4 years in California because I always vacation in California from age 7 to age 17. So I wanted to go somewhere else. So I was so upset, dramatic, emotional. I went to my dad and I said, Dad, this is not fair. I applied before him. I got in before him. I have more options. Why should I restrict my chances just because my brother did not get accepted, or my brother was lazy, or my brother was not interested. And luckily, he just got accepted at Case Western Reserve. But that goes back to how my mom plays upon the traditional gender role expectations that a young lady at 18 or 19 at that time is not supposed to venture on her own and leave her family behind without the male protection. No, my dad disagreed with that. My dad never, ever believed in that. It was all my mom's belief system that dictated and dominated that position. And he was very disappointed to a certain point, but he just could not win that fight. My mom waged war on that concept, and she won at the end. So meanwhile, from the time I graduated from high school until the time I got accepted to Case Western or American universities, I had 3 marriage proposals, arranged marriage, not forced marriage, as I mentioned before. Forced marriage, it is a horrible thing to go through. These were arranged marriage, meaning that strategically both families, the bride family and the suitor's family, they plan the meet and greet, and they basically nominate the suitor for your daughter, and it's up to you to say yes or no. So I had 3 arranged marriages that I said nope, 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 and I said I'm going to the United States. It's enough that you have imposed Case Western Reserve on me. It was not my first choice, and so no, back at you, basically. So I landed in Cleveland, Ohio, and that's where I met my life partner, Dr. Ihab Abdurrahim, there, and I got married. So I landed in the United States in 1988, and at Case Western, I had 3 different interest in me, romantic interest, let's put it that way. I never dated. I went from no dating to getting married. One from Syria, one from Turkey, and one from Tunisia. They're all engineers. But I wasn't interested in marriage because I was focused on achieving what I came here to achieve, which is getting my undergrad, getting out of Case Western, and going into dental school. But I met my Egyptian darling, and the rest is history. I moved to California after I got married for 2 years, and I worked in a daycare as a substitute teacher for the infant and the toddler's room. And it was amazing. I love children. As you guys know, I advocate for children education, for their rights, for their protection, for their future. I wasn't sure if I would wait for my husband. He was in the PhD program at UC Davis. Whether I will wait for him till he's graduated, then I can get my dental degree. So my husband said, no, you need to apply. I promise you, Dad, that I will help you and empower you to achieve your dream, which is becoming a dentist. Don't worry about me. I don't care where you end up. And you need to apply. So I took a year off, and then I start planning for dental school. During that year, I worked as a full-time nanny for a 4 and a 6-year-old darling girls. And I did with 11 hours with them, 7 in the morning to 7 at night. And I would go home and study from 7 to midnight for my DAT, my entrance exam or placement exam for dental school. And I will have a couple of hours of sleep, and I'll be at their house at 7 o'clock. Their parents were lawyers, so they traveled a lot. And the younger one had a speech disability, so she had to go to the therapy. So they gave me a car, and I would take them everywhere. Sometimes I had to stay later, even if their parents got stuck and in the airports or connecting flights or in a meeting. But I learned a lot from that experience because taking care of a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old full time, I became the parent, really. And after I left, when I got accepted in dental school, after I left, they went through 6 nannies in a year. And I did end up visiting them every time or every chance I got when I used to go back to California to visit EHUB at UC Davis. So I got accepted into NYU. Now, NYU acceptance is very, very interesting. There was one incident at Case Western, which almost kicked me out of Case Western Reserve. And I felt my whole world came tumbling down. I was taking, I'm not sure what class, science class exam I was taking. And I knew this kid from Jordan, and he was struggling in that class. He used to borrow my notes. He used to ask me if, compare his homework answers with my homework answers. And that I remember very, very clearly, as if it happened yesterday. He was diagonally sitting in the exam to my right. And I was taking my exam. And we came out of the exam and, you were asked, like, how did you do? How do you feel? Oh, it was hard. It was fine. I think I did okay. Then I got a letter from that science department. I'm not sure it was chemistry or physics. I don't remember. It's been a long time. We're talking 1989. And that I got the letter and I just start sobbing. So that letter from the department accusing me of collaborating with him to copy off me on that exam, which was not true, obviously. So my English was good, but it wasn't good enough for me to really be engaged in a dialogue where I can actually explain myself and defend myself. So my husband at that time, we were not romantically involved at all. He was my brother's best friend. So I went to my brother crying. I said, they're going to kick me out. I sacrificed everything. I've been waiting for this for a long, long time. I'm not going to give up right now. So he gave the letter to my husband at that time and have him read it. And my husband actually appealed to the department saying that, I'm a family friend and, I'm here to support her because some of the terminology that you might use at this hearing, she might not understand because English is my second language. And that taps into how immigrants sometimes with the language barrier, they won't be able to advocate for themselves, not knowing what kind of rights they have and how the law is and what the policy are, or even understand or translate those policies in order to comprehend them to defend yourself. So we went to the hearing and I was just crying. I was shaking. I was so nervous. I was so upset. I was so scared. I was ashamed. And my mindset was like, I did this. I allowed him and I enabled him. I should have not sat in front of him. But it wasn't true. So anyways, fast forward, I was acquitted. And he was kicked out. And I still felt bad about it. But I was like, oh my God, this never, ever, ever happened to me before. I went through school in Saudi with a clear record. It was spotless. I was the best of the best. I was the top of the class. I was the popular girl. And that just that incident shattered my confidence. It took me a while to get over it. I was so scared to talk to people. I was very cautious to build any relationships, to help people. The doubt and the trust completely changed. But, time heals, and I graduated. I was engaged at my senior year to that person that helped me and sat in the hearing. And that was the first rejection episode or experience I ever have. I was never rejected academically. And especially to be accused and the believing or even thinking of the possibility that I will be expelled, the shame, oh my God, the guilt. As you know, as an immigrant, you leave everything behind and everybody that you love. And that's a huge price to pay for higher education. But that is how much higher education is important to us that we are ready to make that sacrifice. So I got married, then graduated, moved to California, worked in the daycare and as a full-time nanny. Then I applied to dental school. The only school that sent me an interview request is New York University Dental School. I got really excited because my in-laws live in New Jersey. It means that I'm going back to my second home. And my husband was planning to finish his PhD and go back to New Jersey anyway. So I said, it's perfect. I'll go ahead of him. I will get into dental school if I get accepted, and we will establish our life back in the East Coast because that was his plan. So it was perfect. I flew over, stayed with my in-laws. My in-laws are so sweet. Allah yarhamhum ihsan ilayhim wa ummi wa abi. They were so excited, so supportive, and they drove me from New Jersey to New York City, and my father-in-law waited in the car, literally. I don't know where he parked that long. It was like an hour interview. The outfit that I had on, I remember it was a black and white checkered outfit that my mother-in-law actually hand-tailored for me. Remember, my mother-in-law, she was a very talented seamstress. So I wore that for good luck. And I remember the interviewer, he was New Yorker, Italian, very handsome, jet black hair, slicked back, beautiful tailored suit. He had the shirt and the tie and the suspenders, and very intimidating. I went in with the mindset that I'm going to do the best I can, because if I limit myself, it's going to be my own doing. So I just released the resistance, and I just, acted like myself. I was very authentic, genuine. I told myself, just be yourself, Slava. If they like you, they like you. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So I can tell he was intrigued by my background. NYU has a huge international program, advanced standing program, and I felt good about it. And my father-in-law took me to dinner, and then I think that weekend we watched the circus, although I am terrified by clowns, but we went out and we made a day of it. It was very memorable. Then I went back to California waiting for acceptance letter. I got the letter. I got accepted, but, big but, the class was full, supposedly. So they offered me the 5-year program. 5-year program meant that I think NYU was one of the first schools that offered that program. It meant that you take the first year of basic sciences before you start your clinic. The last 3 years is your clinical work, and you split them in 2. So you just pace yourself. Instead of paying them 4 years, I have to pay them for 5 years. I didn't care. I said, fine, I'll take the deal. And it is limited, I think, numbers. I think there were only 10 in that program. And I remember one of my friends who actually got accepted in that program, she was in the Army Reserve already. And she was an amazing, amazing person. But something happened to her and she ended up leaving the program. Anyway, so I got accepted. And as a newlywed, only been married for 2 years, I had to leave my husband in California on the West Coast and move back in the East Coast to attend NYU Dental School. everything was fine. I cruised through the gross anatomy lab because I'm very visual. So I think it's just a trace of some of my brother's ability having a photographic memory. But if I see something, I never forget it. My junior year, I decided to enroll into the pediatrics honors program because I was thinking about becoming a pediatric dentist with my experience with children. I love children. I believe that children's our future, and I believe in early years development, that we need to invest a lot in our children in order for them to become a healthy, civil, good, decent citizens. So I got enrolled, I got accepted, and I did a residency in the Lutheran Hospital in Queens, and in Brooklyn, and I did extra curriculum and extra clinical practices in the pediatrics department at NYU. And at one point, I had to take a final examination, and it almost like I was so burned out that I failed that test. And I remember my professor, Dr. Rosenberg. She was very bohemian, very mystical, very spiritual, very California vibes. And she called me and she said, I need to talk to you about your grade. And I said, I can't believe I failed. But I remember when I took that exam, I was just tired. I couldn't focus. It's like reading the questions. It sounded gibberish to me. I was just tired. I almost like wanted to say, I couldn't take the exam, but I pushed through, and evidently I failed. So she called me and she sat with me and she said, what's going on? And I said, I don't know. I'm just tired. And she said, it's not like you to perform that way. For some reason, she noticed the pattern of my answers, luckily. And she said, I want you to retake the exam, and I'm going to sit with you and see how you are answering those questions because I know you know the material. I said, sure. So it was like, oh my God, that's very generous of her. And the day I sat with her and I took the exam, by the time we went through half of the questions and she stopped, she goes, let's stop, time out. I said, what happened? She goes, do you think you're dyslexic? You have a learning disability? And I said, me, learning disability? I was at top of my class and I was offended. And she said, I think you do. And I said, what is a learning disability anyways? And she explained it to me. She gave me some articles to read. And she said, Slava, I'm telling you right now, if you are going to continue like this, you're not going to graduate. And I highly recommend for you to go to a center where they can test you to classify you, basically. So I said, sure, I'll go. It was in Sleepy Hollow, I think New York. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a bad omen. The name Sleepy Hollow is going to be horrible. They're going to test me. There will be nothing wrong with me. And I'm failing. I have to quit dental school. So we drove all the way to Sleepy Hollow to a learning testing center. And they tested me. And they said, okay, we're going to process the data and we're going to send the results to your professor. I get a phone call and she said, hey, I got your results and we need to talk. I said, okay. So I met with her and she says, have a seat. I need you to take this seriously, and I need you to listen without interruptions because it's a lot of data. So she read the test and how they test me and all that stuff. And she said, according to the test, you are diagnosed by dyslexia. I'm like, what the hell is dyslexia? Dyslexia is basically you can't read things, you read things backwards. and you read things in diagonal, so you can't really follow the line by line. So if you don't read the whole sentence, you don't read the whole paragraph, you don't read straight across horizontally, you won't be able to comprehend the concept or the meaning of these words. And I cried. And I said, oh my God, I'm disabled. I won't be able to finish dental school. I'm not going to be able to be a dentist. How am I going to practice? And everything basically gets reversed. Numbers, 3773, 105, 501, especially when you are stressed and you are tired, dyslexia kicks in. I was like, how's that even possible? I aced my gross anatomy lab. I aced my microbiology. I aced my all the classes. She goes, well, it doesn't really matter. It has nothing to do with your knowledge. It has to do how your brain processes the information as you are reading it when you are under extreme stress and when you are very, very tired. So we went over a couple of tools, adaptation, things to do, how to notice that I'm too tired, when to study, when not to study, and all that. And she wanted to give me a second chance by taking the exam again. So she was wonderful. She sat with me. She took the exam with me. She read me every single question and every single answer. And I remember she would read the question for me and she'll say, did you understand the question? Yes. And then she'll read the answers one by one, very slow. The whole test, supposed to be 45 minutes, took like 2 hours. I passed. Luckily, there were not a lot of written tests. Mostly was practical testing, which I cruised through that. I took my national board, I was fine. I took my NERB, I was fine. So that was the second incident that humbled me a little bit for a young 19-year-old girl that was it from Saudi Arabia, did it all, like I said, was the perfect model for a student. The Case Western incident and then NYU incident. I graduated with Pete's honors and I decided to do a year residency in Pennsylvania. The April of the residency, I got pregnant for the first time. Unfortunately, it did not work out. I had to abort because at 14 weeks, they could not hear a heartbeat, and they found out that I was carrying a Siamese twins that's going through heart failure, pulmonary edema, and spinal bifida. And when the doctors found out, the radiologists and OBGs, they said, you have 24 hours to decide either to continue through that pregnancy. It may risk your life. You might die if you end up carrying on through the full term. Your twins may survive or may not survive, or abort, try again. The fetuses probably, they were gonna terminate themselves because they were going through the pulmonary edema and heart failure. But if the pregnancy terminates itself, it would have risked my life because it would be very hard to clean all that out, and I would have ended up suffering from sepsis and death. So we had 24 hours to decide, and of course, talked to EHOB and my family, and they said, you're still young, let's, abort and you'll try again. So I was in the midst of going through the residency, and it was high risk pregnancy too, because I was spotting all the way through pregnancy. I was on progesterone, and I was taking the last part of national board. I submitted my boards, the practical boards, and it was approved by a faculty, and they said, oh, you're doing a great job. It's definitely a pass. Let's just send it to the committee to be evaluated, and it was done. So I get a letter from the Northeast Regional Board that I failed. And I'm like, how's that even possible? It was evaluated in front of me. I, matched all the criteria and they told me it was a pass. So my husband said that this is ridiculous. He hired a lawyer. The lawyer pressured the committee to review. And then they gave me a passing grade. And I'm like, how can that be from failure to passing just because my lawyer asked you to review the data? Anyhow, I passed. After that, I went to Maine because my husband had a new job with National Semiconductor in Portland, Maine. And we moved to Maine. We lived there for about 18 months. And that's when I started my career. I had my first job in Gorham, Maine as an associate. It was amazing. My mentor, he became my mentor and he still is. And after 18 months, my husband's job got transferred to Massachusetts from Maine. And then I landed my partnership in the second largest dental practice in southern New Hampshire. And I became a partner for about 11 years. And I became a partner by default. The senior dentist that hired me, he was a Case Western Reserve Dental School graduate. And my resume caught his eye. And his plan was to have me as an associate for 5 years. He had a junior partner. And for him to phase out and for me to take on his share of that partnership. I started with them November 5th. The senior partner passed away, got killed in a car accident March 5th. And I remember that day I came to work 7:30 in the morning. The whole office was empty. I'm like, where's everybody? The office manager called me and I only was there for 4 months. And she said, have a seat. I need to talk to you. And the first thought came to my head is like, I killed somebody with Novocaine or somebody ended up in a hospital or this is a malpractice. And she looked at me. She goes, Dr. So-and-so was killed last night in a car accident. And we're shutting down, of course, for the funeral and the wake and stuff. It was very, very traumatic. So the junior partner approached me and he said, listen, we just bought this property, it's a 25-year practice, but we just moved to this brand new, beautiful facility and I need a partner. And I said, listen, I had my contract about 5 years for me to kind of phase into the partnership. I know nothing about owning a practice, managing a practice. He goes, don't worry, I'll teach you everything. So 18 months, I became a full-time partner. I learned a lot and I continued for 11 years. I think the 10th year, I had an opportunity to expand my business ventures and to open a medi-spa with a dental chair there to do cosmetic dentistry in the state of Massachusetts. I was an owner in the state of New Hampshire, so there was no conflict there. So I had an esthetician, my friend that I've known, and we became partners. And I just wanted to, like I said, try being an entrepreneur. I had my partnership in dentistry and I was doing it for a decade. I was very comfortable. I just wanted to try something different and tap more into the cosmetic dentistry. So we established that business, and there was a letter from the lawyers that consummated almost the partnership at the medi-spa. And that letter was sent to my work in New Hampshire, and the financial director opened my mail. She read the letter and she found out that I had another business in Massachusetts. She gave that letter to my partner, and my partner just pledged war on me. He basically told me, get out. And you have no place here. You have tricked me. You have deceived me. You have cheated on me pretty much. And you cannot have two businesses. Either you're in, you're out. You can't be half in, half out. And I said, I'm not going to be half in, half out. I'm just a business owner in another state. Has nothing to do with the type of dentistry we're working on. And it was a horrible, I call it my dental divorce. It was one of the worst times of my career, not because of dentistry, just the dynamics and the mistreatment that I was put through after serving him for pretty much 11 years. Hired lawyers, went through the whole, like I said, the divorce, dismantling the partnership. And he basically told me, I owe you nothing. And here is your down deposit that you gave me 11 years ago when I gave you this partnership, and no profit, nothing. So I was basically pushed out. And again, there was the third event in my life that just shook me and shook my confidence and shook my belief system. But there's a reason for everything. And that's when I created my brand, Greenwood Dental. And I opened my first office in 2013, and the second office 2017, 2018, and the third is 2022. And now we are franchised and we are trademarked. We are waiting for our logo to be trademarked. So that's my journey. And creating my brand had its own experiences and its own events and disappointments and challenges and very scary time, a lot of doubts, a lot of shaken confidence. What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? What was I thinking? This is not going to work out. Rejection, redirection, changing the belief system, changing the mindset, mastering a limited mindset to a certain point. It was very toxic intrusion of limited beliefs that it was on off, and it was exhausting because you are on and you just so high on the possibility, finally I'm going to make it, and something comes across knocking that house of cards down, and that you're trying to keep it in balance. You're very delicate, and you just try to survive and get out of it and thrive. And honestly, if I would think of what made me keep going, to be honest with you, I have one word: stubbornness. I'm very stubborn and I'm not a quitter, and constantly thinking of how much I already sacrificed and how would I give up? How could I give up on the dream that I've been dreaming about since I was 7 years old when I met Dr. Ghassan Faraon, that took my first loose baby tooth. And also having the sense of dedication to achieve as much as you can in order to make your family and your heritage proud of you, and to go back and say, see what I've made, look what I have built, are you proud of me? Of course, that could be very straining and very overwhelming and suffocating, but I can tell you right now, that's what kept me going. That's what kept me kind of intact mentally. And as some of you probably listened to the mental health episode that we have launched, the being part of that traditional culture, conservative, classical structured culture that, we don't have time for mental health. We don't have time to be, sitting in the corner sobbing and hoping somebody will feel bad for us and extend a helping hand. We are taught to be very independent. We're taught to be, conduct yourself with a, upper stiff lip and carry on, basically. Don't ever give up. But life is full of challenges and obstacles. And if we don't try to conquer those challenges and champion those difficulties with the mindset that focus on the bottom line. Don't worry about how I'm going to go through that process or how I'm going to go through the journey, and keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. That's what would get you or keep you going and staying on the path of achieving your dream, honestly. And every time I talk about this, I still can't wrap my head around how did I make it. Luckily, I was very young. Honestly, if I'm going through this right now, I can't even imagine having the stamina and the resilience and the energy and the strength to keep on going. But life has a very funny way of showing you your path. Just when you think, aha, I made it and this is it, life is like, nope, that's not it. Keep moving. Rejection, redirect, take a detour. Just like driving down the road, you're trying to get to your destination. I was like, oh, there's an accident. There's a detour sign. I don't have time to take a detour, but you have to in order to get to your final destination. So, all I want to say is trust the process, master a certain mindset, a mindset that will help you and serve you well, even if that means you have to tweak your belief system a little bit. That's okay. My experience in changing or adjusting or modifying my belief system, it was very hard because I could not avoid the feeling that by changing my belief system, I am ripping out my roots, because this is my ancestors' belief system. And by changing it or telling yourself this doesn't serve me well anymore, you're abandoning your heritage. But I learned from my healing mentor and my life coach that that's not the case. If you look at it that way, again, it's another mindset that you are always going to be stuck in a system that doesn't serve you very well. And you have no other choice but to change the mindset in order to change that belief system so you can achieve what you're trying to achieve. Because as an immigrant, again, we pay a very, very high price in order to have a better life, in order to be happier, in order to elevate our senses, whether through education or entrepreneurship or just a small business ownership, and thrive and live, because that's the whole point. We are sent here on earth to live, not to suffer. So we have reached the end of our hour. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I thought I'll share a little bit more to get a sense of where I come from when I discuss certain concepts and principles in life. So as a reminder, these episodes are uploaded every single Wednesday on Apple and Spotify, and also these are available for you to watch whenever you want, wherever you are. And if you have any questions or any topics, especially if you enjoyed this episode, please drop it in the comments, and I'll be very happy to discuss or cover. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for listening on the Mindset Mastery Moments. And I hope to see you next time. This is Slava the Jordanian.